welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me, Steve.
Fantastic to have you here finally. Obviously, you've been away overseas, and we didn't want to do it remotely because it's so much better.
It is. It's good in person, and you can do in-person things now.
You can.
It's good.
I like it. I like it. And I think I don't know if you've watched any of the ones that are remote, but where you're on a big screen, it's a bit weird.
I have it. It is, and I think like after COVID, you get a bit sick of seeing yourself on a screen like that. You know, you're just like, oh gosh, is that what I look like?
Yeah.
So in person is nice.
It is. It is. So to launch off, please tell us who you are and what your company Mumli does.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Mel Corlett. I'm the founder and CEO of Mumli. Mumli is a mobile-first platform for motherhood. Yep. Now, we can go real deep. Like, how deep do you want to go? I won't go too deep. I won't. So Mumli is an app that helps moms personalize their motherhood experience. So this can be, we cater to their needs as a mom based on content, products and services, community, the full shebang. Not currently, but that's our roadmap. That's kind of what we hope to be. Yeah.
So it's been a few years since I went through it, and obviously I didn't actually go through the motherhood route, but I was aligned. I was next to her. Yeah. It's been a few years since we went through that journey. I was at 14 and 12 now, so there wasn't anything like that. And there's a few different things popping up now around helping mums, and so I'm quite keen to go relatively deep into this. But before we get into the product. How did it happen? You know, tell us a little bit about what you were doing beforehand. I'm guessing that you fell into motherhood and it probably came from there. That's what it usually does, but it might not have. So let's talk about that. What were you doing before, and how did you sort of come up with the idea, and what made you actually take that leap? Yeah,
it's a great question. I always ask, we interview, obviously, we're doing some interviews and hiring at the moment, and I find women in tech always have such interesting stories because you never end up in tech because you're like, you know, I went to high school and I want to be in tech and I want to be a product manager. I want to start an app. You never learn about that. So the people who end up in tech, I find they have really interesting stories. And mine is a bit, it is a bit of a journey that I went on to get here, but there are some stars that I think aligned for me along the way, which makes me feel now like, this is exactly what I should be doing. Of course, I ended up here.
Cool. Well, I love a journey. Let's hear it.
Yeah. So I studied finance and accounting in university, and I loved that. And I always had the intention of going and working in investment banking. And I just love businesses. I love learning about businesses. I love seeing how they grow. I love being on that journey with them. And I loved math. So I was like, this is a great, kind of best of both worlds for me. And to pay my way through uni, I started this semi-illegal business of training women out of our university gym. And I say semi-illegal because
you're being recorded, by the way.
Really, I know, but it's like so in the past now. I'm just like, oh, it's not illegal like I was doing anything, selling anything illegal. But
Stop saying illegal.
Oh God, okay, sorry. Okay, so I started this side hustle business out of university to pay for my degree, to pay for my books because it's so expensive. Cool. So I started training women, and I started training women out of my local university gym. I was really passionate about fitness.
Cool.
Loved doing that. And I started working with a lot of women who were postpartum, who wanted to lose weight postpartum. So it was then that I kind of established a passion for working with women and kind of that space. Anyway, I ended up like growing a relatively big team. It was kind of funny, and then just stopped once I got my first job in investment banking.
So you just did that where did you go to uni?
Oh God, when was I in uni?
No, where did you go?
Concordia University. So I went to the John Molson School of Business in Montreal.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So what happened to all your women when you they just got, like I had a team with me, a team that I built, so they just kind of took over and then went and kind of did it on their own, which is really nice. So after I got my first job in investment banking, I realized I absolutely hated it. It was kind of right in the middle of the financial crisis. It wasn't a great time to be kind of working with businesses, and it was a really sad time actually because a lot of businesses were closing and it was really hard. So I got a bit depressed doing that, and then did the whole, quit my job, broke up with my boyfriend, and moved to the farthest place that I could think of, which was Australia. Did you cut your hair as well? Sounds like a moment when you cut your hair.
Right, it would be. You cut your hair, you get a tattoo. No, I didn't do any of that. But it was supposed to be. Yeah, I came to Australia. It was supposed to be a 6-month stint. Ended up just saying, I just want to work in a cafe. I just want to do something like happy, just serve people coffee, like just, bring some joy back to my life. And ended up getting a job at a cafe. Met my then husband when I'd been here for 3 months, and then I never really left. To my mom's horror. But yeah, I lived there. I've been living here almost 10 years.
Look, it's a common story. Same for me. I came for a year.
Yeah.
Met my wife within about 6 months, and I've been here 23 years now. So you're never leaving if you follow the story.
Oh, I love living here. So yeah, I don't want to leave. Once I decided I wanted to live here, I kind of had to make a decision around, do I want to stay in banking and kind of continue my career in that space, or do I want to explore something different? And it was around that time where I was, saying I'm super passionate about this fitness space and helping women and women's health. So I decided to open up a women-focused gym in Sydney. And I did that for 4 years, sold it right at the beginning of COVID, which was great.
Nice.
But I ended up working with a lot of, we got lucky. A lot of women who are going through pregnancy and postpartum, and noticed that there were not many resources out there for like the postpartum period, and it was really hard to find them. So I was like, why don't we just put together some programs, or this is how naive I was, just develop an app.
Yeah, people love saying that.
People love saying that, right?
Yeah, we'll just build
an app.
Yeah.
And that way it can be kind of a hub for everything that they need. For that postpartum period. So it can, we can help them recover and build up in a really safe way. So started doing some focus groups, just focus groups in the gym, focus groups with other people, a lot of them actually. And we learned that the problem was so much bigger than that. So people wanted information on their pelvic floor. They wanted information on how to train safely during pregnancy, but they also wanted breastfeeding help. They wanted, resources on birth. They wanted resources on sleep, like so many different things. And they just kept saying it's so hard to find relevant information.
Yeah.
It's so hard to decipher what is relevant to me, what applies to me in my scenario. So we were like, okay, this is a bit of a bigger issue, and kept going down that, just kept talking to mums and spent a lot of time doing that. And then I ended up just saying, okay, gonna sell the gyms, gonna dive into this completely. And 2 years later, it's turned into a bit of a thing, but
a bit of a thing. I like it. A bit of a thing.
Yeah, but I was talking to one of my friends the other day who's also a founder. She's just she just raised a bunch of money to start her business, and she's saying, you almost have to be super naive when you start, because you wouldn't do it if
same
you
as having
knew
children.
What you know now.
Exactly the same as having children.
I can't say I do anything different now having kids, but it is almost good that people withhold certain things from you, because you're like, God, wow, that's wild. Yeah.
So it's been 2 years now.
It's been 2 years since kind of the idea started. By the time we got a team and we actually started building a product, that's been about 18 months.
Okay. I didn't know you owned a gym. It's interesting.
That's how I met Lucky.
Ah.
So the fitness space, the gym space, yeah. So
which is where I met your husband, which is, it's also entwined, because I was training with your husband.
Yes.
So isn't that, that's funny. So tell me about the name before we get into sort of that, because I think what's also happened during that period is there's been a lot more, research is the wrong word, but I think there's been a lot more insight gained around particularly post-pregnancy, about what you can do. And there's a lot more information than there was. You used to just sort of rely on whatever the midwife said is gospel, and that's it.
Yeah.
Whereas now there's a lot more research, there's a lot of variance depending on who you are and what you do and all that kind of stuff. So it would have gone through this huge information overload at the same time. But back to the name, Mumli. Where did that come? I'm always intrigued by names, because I've had 3 companies, and creating a name is so hard. It's hard. It's one of the hardest things I think you ever do. Where did it come from?
So we worked with an amazing agency branding agency to help us, because I was like, we'll just call it like Mama or something. And they were like, that's really cute, but we're not
we're not doing it.
I know. And then my legal team was just like, how are we going to copyright or patent this or trademark this or whatever? So anyway, they were amazing at taking kind of the soul of what we were building and bringing it to life in a name. And names are super important. So we wanted to be fun. We wanted to be lighthearted. We wanted to be something that was, almost rolled off the tongue, that felt like it always belonged there. And going through that process with them was really interesting. And of course, oh my gosh, this was like a while ago now. But, you go through that whole breakdown of, this is why we thought of this name and these are the reasons behind this name.
It's hard, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, no, it's really hard, but it was one of the most, for me anyway, in terms of when we started thinking about the values of the business, that was really where it started.
Yeah.
And Mumli came out of, obviously something that is a combination of just being a mom and something's very motherly, but it's also kind of a cute take on just...
Yeah, I like it. And it does roll off the tongue. So you nailed that. But I think you're right. I think it almost, it makes it very real, I think, when you come up with a name.
Yep.
But it does make you think about it in a way that you might not have.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing. Because like you said, most people go into businesses, and I think you're right, they should go into businesses with a pretty naive impression of what it's going to be like.
There is a healthy balance, I think. And one of the interesting things that you do have to consider when you are figuring out a name for your business is there is a lot of kind of legal aspects to that when it does come to trademarking. And if you do want to be eventually an international business, it can get really pricey when you want to trademark your names or trademark your logos and things like that. So that was the first kind of the first experience that I had when I was like, wow, this is a bit bigger than maybe I anticipated. But I love that experience.
Cool. Now talk to me. So 18 months of properly throwing yourself into it, and then 6 months where you were just really creating and thinking and doing everything yourself, I'm assuming.
Yeah, a lot of idea validation, just trying to see, does this have legs? How do we validate this? How can we create a product or a version of this product that we can just start getting eyes on, that we can, get people to test it and see if it gets some feedback, really.
Right, okay. So far, what's the hardest thing that has happened or that you've had to do? It doesn't necessarily mean the most complicated or the most difficult to achieve. But for you personally, what's been that? Because I think a lot of people who watch this show, we have a real mix of founders. We have a lot of people who want to be founders who watch this show as well. So, let's take away their naivety. What's been maybe some of the hardest things that you've found during, because you're still pretty early on, right? Even though 2 years seems like quite a long time when you're in it, it does seem like ages, right?
Yeah.
Nudge's only been around 2.5 and it feels like it's been around forever. But what's been the hardest thing so far?
I think the hardest thing, and this is also, I would say, the most important thing, is convincing people to kind of tag along, convincing people that your idea is worth their time.
Yep.
And this is teammates, this is agencies, and you oftentimes don't have a huge budget.
Yep.
So you've got to sell people on the dream.
You do.
And that was the hardest and the most rewarding bit, because you can, the people who come on board are, they're really with you and they really believe in what you're doing and they believe in the mission of the business.
Yep.
But you have to believe it like it's currency. You have to have so much belief in what you're doing that, people just want to be a part of it. So that was hard at the beginning, to just have these conversations and be like, guys, I have this idea.
Infectious. You need to become infectious.
You do. And, my engineers, 2 great guys, but don't have kids, and haven't even thought of the kid space. So sitting there and being like, I have this idea, you don't know me, but I really need your help, and this is why. And getting buy-in on your product and getting buy-in on your idea is, people underestimate that, but it's really important. People want to work for you if they think you're just, you're not in it for the right reasons, or you're not passionate enough about it. So
particularly
that's really
engineers, because they're hard to attract, regardless if they love the subject matter.
Yeah.
But if they're not even had kids, then you've obviously excelled at doing that.
Yeah, it was one thing that I did well early on, and I got lucky. So there's a few factors when it comes into this. You just kind of have to meet the right people at the right time. And I was really lucky in COVID. A lot of engineers are being kind of not laid off permanently, but being semi-laid off. So dropping down to 3 days, and they were looking for, kind of side projects to work on. So I was really lucky that I got some intros in that time to some amazing engineers. But I wouldn't have known that they were good engineers. I actually, you don't know that. And now I have a really good sense of, okay, that's a senior, or that's a mid-tier, or that's just a junior. But when you first start out, you have no idea, and they just speak this language that you know nothing about. And getting to know how your product's going to be built, what's involved, and being able to actually have conversations with them is really important. But engineers are definitely one of the most important people that you need to get buy-in from, and that you'll recruit for your project, really.
Yeah, 100%, because they're building it, right? I mean,
they are building it, and You need someone who has experience in specifically what you want to build. You need someone who has the ability to see beyond just what we need today. And build a product that can scale with your business growth, which is hard because then you end up, you see it so many times, not just, startups, but big businesses who need to rebuild the plane mid-flight. And that's really hard and not good.
I like the way you call it mid-flight, because I think that probably epitomizes just how hard it is, right?
Yeah. It's like rebuilding an airplane, bit by bit as it's flying in the air.
Yeah.
That
not
is
good at all.
Essentially, no, not good. So yeah, finding those engineers that'll come on and kind of be your partners. And I was really lucky too. I found quite product focused engineers. So you can find engineers who are also involved in like that UX experience and have input.
Yep.
And that was great. But I mean, we'd probably get together in a room now and laugh at some of the things we were doing. It's just,
So
let's just do this. Sure, we can do this. Okay. What about this idea? All right, let's go. So those are some really fun days.
That's good. Mm-hmm. That's good. Well, let's talk about the product.
Sure.
Let's get into it. So
sure.
We've got the app. It's on the phone. What have you got on there at the moment? If someone was to go and download it today off the App Store, what would they find on there right now?
We're still in a closed beta. So the way that we're doing it is we kind of like drip feed in new users based on what we're wanting to test or the aspects of the app where we're like, okay, I think we want a little bit more insight here, where we've just launched this new feature. Let's get some more people and see and get some feedback. So we're purposely keeping it quite small at the moment. And we've never really brought people on to experience the app in its entirety, because we've had to kind of build it piece by piece and get feedback on each individual piece. So at the moment, you'd go onto the App Store, you'd experience, you'd kind of get on our wait list, and then you'd get notified when you basically could download the app.
Okay, and when you can, what are you going to see? What are the products and features that you've sort of got now? And then we'll maybe go into where you see it going in a minute. But what's on there sort of, where you're at with that life cycle?
Yeah, so the first phase of our product is really focused on content. So it's about taking all the information out there that is like, information overload for a new mom, and breaking it down into pieces of content that we create. So like our bespoke native content and a combination of third-party content. And so that could be from other pieces of content on the web. And we bring that onto the app, and then the user comes through and will notify us on their stage of motherhood, things like their location, their interests, parenting philosophies, their values. Basically, we get to know them as a user and as a mom and as an individual, really. And then we serve them content based on what other moms like them are engaging with at their stage of motherhood, what we think they would like. So the first phase is really just focused on content. The second phase is where it gets really cool. But we can stay on that first phase. And so how we're planning on developing that is a combination of free content that users can access, but then also premium content that will be collaborative with experts or influencer partnerships, celebrities, that sort of thing.
Yeah, cool. So I'm guessing that you're doing that sort of profiling because there is so much information on the web. The whole point of this app is to give you the information that you need at the right time, and it's targeted for you, right? That's the whole point, is to make it simpler.
Yeah, no, exactly. So like think about a Google search experience. If I'm a mom and I want information on the 4-month sleep regression, like the dreaded 4-month sleep regression, and you go on Google and you look that up. So you search in 4-month sleep regression. The first pieces of content that come up are ads. So it's who's paid the most to be here, who's got the right keywords, who's got all the SEO team working for them. It's not necessarily most relevant information. And how are you even supposed to evaluate whether it's useful? Other moms have got benefit from this piece of content. It's a terrible search experience and a discovery experience. So you end up going to page like 13 to find maybe a piece of information that's relevant to you. But even then still, like, how does it help you make a decision? What do you do from that piece of content? Maybe you've decided that you want to find a sleep consultant, right? Maybe you're like, okay, that's my next step. I haven't really found the information or solutions I'm looking for. I'll go look up a sleep consultant. But then how do you even discover a sleep consultant? It's, people who have paid the most. You get served. I got served people in Melbourne. It's not a great experience. And then how do you evaluate those solutions? How are you like, yes, this is the best person? There's no ratings. You have to go check them out on Instagram. And it could take 2 to 3 hours to even find a solution.
And who's got 2 to 3 hours to get to page 13 with a newborn?
Yeah, well, that's exactly the point, right? And I think moms have been really underserved in this space for a long time, and they have very specific needs. They're a very specific part of the population. And for a long time, they've just had to resource like these corners of the internet, you know, a Facebook group over here and like some Instagram influencers over here, or Google will serve you 18,000 results to your search, no problem. You've got all the time in the world to sift through that. But I do think now the future of search will be a more boutique experience. I think people will look for a more personalized experience when it comes to discovery and search. And that's what our platform is setting it up to be for mums.
Cool. I mean, that in itself is a massive, massive achievement, because it's not easy to do that. And that's why it's taken so long, right?
Yeah. No, once you start doing things, you're like, oh, wow, that's actually...
it's not as simple as I thought.
That's not so simple. And building algorithms, and when do you build, when do you bring in algorithms and data scientists and things like that? Because people, I mean, the issue now is, my observation is that models like the lean startup no longer exist. I think the lean startup model was an amazing, brilliant concept, 10 years ago, when smartphones were just becoming, as freely used as they are now, and apps were just like the coolest thing, and everyone, you could have these apps that just targeted everyone with a heartbeat, and the standards were so low, and you could kind of build yourself a really decent app on a lean model. But now the problem is that users' experiences and their standards are so high. They're used to products like Instagram, who have a 3,000, 5,000 person engineering team. It's like, we've got 6. But that's the standard, right? And they're coming in. So your product has to be perfect. It has to be perfect, because now it's like, what, the attention span of millennials is like 5 or 6 seconds you've got to really capture them.
Is that what it is? It's interesting. No one's ever mentioned this. In all the shows we've done, no one's ever mentioned about how the user expectations and standards have gone up. It's quite interesting, and you're right, and everyone knows it, but actually I've never had anyone come on the show and talk about it before. 5 or 6 seconds?
That's how long you have really to capture that user. I think for apps it's a little bit longer. I think marketing campaigns is around 5-6 seconds. That's how long they have, or I think it's even less, to be honest, like if they're flicking through Instagram.
I suppose so, they scroll, don't they? They scroll. They just scroll. The thumbs.
Not next. Yeah. So I think with apps you have a little bit longer, but I think it's somewhere between like 10 and 15 seconds is how long you have to grab the attention of that user and convince them that your app is worth their time.
That's brutal.
So if you don't, it's brutal. If you don't deliver them information that's relevant, that's fast, right? That's of value to them. They'll just be like, nah, close the app, next, like, see you next time. So much of our focus is when we release features. Obviously we're in the stage of business where we can release products. We're in a closed beta. We can ship product that's maybe 80% there. But when we get to, we want to grow our user base, we want to kind of operate this product at scale, everything we release needs to be perfect. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that. What is the future? You said there's the really cool fun stuff. Yeah. I want to hear what the really cool, and I know everyone else does. What's the really cool fun stuff?
So I think as this product evolves, and kind of the more we dive into the motherhood space, it becomes this really cool kind of open ocean opportunity, where when you think about mums, a lot of times you think about the nappies, you think about, buying the prams, but when you really think about motherhood and what's involved, it is very much that mums are CEOs of the family unit. It is a job, and they are not just responsible for, feeding the baby when it's born and swaddling in it, putting it down and getting through the 4-month sleep regression. What is very much involved in motherhood is purchasing the food for the family. Mums make, it's a really interesting stat actually, women make up 50% of the population, consume 85% of make 85% of the purchases in the United States. Like, they are responsible for
85.
that. 85? It's crazy, yeah, that's a US stat, but they make 85% of the purchases.
That's a lot of decisions in one day.
It's a lot of decisions, right? And they don't just make decisions, like I said, on the nappies or the prams. It's like a lot of times mums are making the decision on the new car. Mums are making the decision on the home insurance. Mums are responsible for finding an accountant or a cleaner or a notary to make a will. Like, it's all of these needs that you don't really think about. But when you actually look at mums as CEOs and you ask yourself, what are the jobs that need to be done? You realize that they have just been
You're overwhelming me.
You're
overwhelming me now just thinking about it, actually.
But you just realize moms have been slugging it with no help. And you think at every other role and every other industry, there is a piece of tech that helps people get their jobs done. I mean, there's probably 10 different pieces of tech to send an email. But when you look at moms, there's absolutely nothing that has been created or built to help them do their jobs better.
No.
And there is massive opportunity, I think, to be able to say, hey, you just had a baby, and it's a little bit morbid, but one of the things you have to do is create a will. And here are a bunch of notaries close to you. And here are the ones that moms have got the most value from. And here's the pricing of them. And here, why don't you just book an appointment and you can set up your will? Or are you looking to buy a new car?
So busy.
But I mean, think of the potential. So phase one is really just creating those connections with content, right? So it's personalized content, experience, information, but then we want to be able to provide moms with solutions to that information. And it's one of the things Google doesn't do. It's okay, we can deliver you information, but Google doesn't help you make decisions.
No.
So being able to say, here's a bunch of information, you've discovered that maybe you need a sleep consultant, or one of your birth preferences is to have a doula, we can actually connect you with doulas that are in your vicinity, because it needs to be kind of location based. Here's, the experiences that other moms have gotten. Here are like the top picks for you. And we actually help them make decisions, find solutions to their problems. So the phase 2 of the product, which I was like, this is so exciting, this is where it gets really cool, is we go beyond just content, and we're able to serve moms products, services, businesses that are relevant to them, and actually help them, take them through that full user journey.
With all the reviews, of course.
Yeah, exactly. So it is very, there's so much social proof in the app as well.
That's incredible. That's really incredible.
It's really fun. It's really cool to explore the different opportunities there, because once you look at, okay, we'll be the platform that will serve this job, you really open yourself up to there's so many different
and you can
stages of motherhood.
They're all going to come to you going, can we have this? Can we have this? Your customer base, they're almost going to create your roadmap for you to some degree once you get this up and really going.
Totally.
Which is awesome. I mean, to be able to build a roadmap based off what your users want, continuously evolving it.
Yep.
That's so much fun.
Oh, it's so much fun. It's actually a really fun product to buy. And I think there's so much opportunity in this space because, I mean, look, we always joke like nobody in Silicon Valley is building an app for moms. They've kind of just been, and moms like, they don't really complain. They just kind of.
They've got time.
They don't have time. But I think we will see a shift, I think, in the way motherhood is, I want to say like tackled or approached, once you become a mom. I think that motherhood is very much going digital. And I think millennials and Gen Z will be the, kind of leading the charge in that front. Gen Zers specifically, like this is going to be such a really cool time for e-commerce and marketplaces because was it 9 in 10 Gen Zers will just never step foot in a store. Most of them, 90% of purchases will be made online. They probably met their spouse online. They track their whole pregnancy online. Like everything all their relationships are online. So they'll look for a very digital motherhood experience. So I think the way that we actually go through our life and balance this combination of, our physical existence and our virtual existence, I think that we'll see a real transition into how people kind of move through those experiences. And I think the motherhood experience will be very digital.
Do you think that you'll get a lot more fathers being more involved with the two biggest changes that have probably happened, which is now paternity leave is becoming quite significant. Like it can be up to 3 months, which you wouldn't have seen 3-4 years ago. And obviously because of COVID now, so many more people working from home 2 or 3 days a week. So they're around more, I guess, to some degree. Whereas before, obviously the mother had to be home because of the feeding and those kinds of things, and the father didn't necessarily, and that might change when they're a bit older, but in the early years, there's just no way around that.
Yep.
Now they are going to be home more. Do you think that's going to change that sort of? I mean, it should do, right? You would hope so. If it doesn't, then geez, that's really rough. But what are you sort of looking at things that you'll do? Are you going to have a father section on there as well, or are you going to? You could call it fatherly.
Yeah,
you could give a sort of brother app, right?
Yeah, no, we always joke and say like, okay, if dads want an app, they can go build that for themselves. Yep. Yeah, we shouldn't have to build the app for the dads.
Someone in Silicon Valley will do that, right?
Someone in Silicon Valley will do that. No, I think that's a cultural shift that we're seeing. I think in my time, definitely. I think dads are just, culturally expected to be more involved now, and the standards have shifted a little bit. I think we'll continue to see that happen.
Yep.
I think one of the things that we see, especially with apps like Pinterest, for example, is kind of collaborative sharing of information. So that's one of the things that will will enable on our platform is you can collaboratively share your products, your services, your purchases, whatever it might be, on the app with your parenting team.
Yeah, okay, cool. So you'll have it's almost a mini social network within the app if you want to create one.
Yeah, I guess I'm wary of saying social network because it's kind of, you're bringing people in who are in your immediate kind of network.
Already there.
Yeah, to like collaborate on your private content.
It's like a WhatsApp group on steroids.
Yeah, kind of like a WhatsApp group, but you're just saying, oh, hey, like obviously, maybe I'm pregnant and I'm obviously looking for baby names for our baby. I found this really cool list of baby names on Mumli, and I'm going to save it to my collaborative collection with Hamish.
Yeah.
So he can see the content that I'm saving and engaging with. It's a great way to kind of do that with in-laws too. You know, if you want to explain your parenting philosophies or values, you can just do it a little bit passively and be like, go read this. I'll add you to my collection on Mumli. You can read it all.
That's a very good idea. So you obviously love this, so I can see where the infectiousness comes from and why you've been managing to get people on board. But if there are people who are interested in working with Mumli, tell me, why would someone want to come and work with you, other than this energy that you've got and the excitement and the cool stuff that's coming and all the other reasons we've already given them? Yeah. Tell me from your view, what do you think is the best thing about working there?
I think we get a couple questions around, do I have to be a mom? Do I have to be a mom? Kind of, and I think, look, having that real life experience is invaluable. Like, I think that's definitely beneficial. But I think when you actually assess what we're doing at Mumli, it is helping moms do what is arguably one of the most important jobs in the world.
Yep.
And it's, partaking in helping make that experience a little bit more joyful for them so that the next generation of the future, might be different. And we can shape that experiences for them. And I think when I look at, I have a daughter, and I think about what her experience is going to be like when she becomes a mom. I think, and I think about my experience and what I did, knowing that I can have an impact on that experience for her. And I can say, it doesn't have to be this overwhelming experience. It doesn't have to be full of anxiety. 40% of women in the US suffer from some form of postnatal depression and anxiety, which has just skyrocketed over the last 10 years. So to be able to say, I want to be able to tell a different story for my kids. I think that it's a passionate mission. And I think people who, are very mission driven, have found their way to us.
You know what, the more I've heard you talk, the more I've listened to it, the name, it just really works. I can almost visualize people going, I'm just going to go on Mumli. Have you looked on Mumli? I sent it to you on Mumli. It does just work. It really rolls off. I know we've come right back to the beginning of the interview again, but
it's great.
The more you've spoken about it, the more obvious it's sort of been, I don't know, maybe it's been flying around in my head. But that's
the goal.
That's good. That was good. Thank that agency. They nailed that.
They did. They did a great job.
Well, look, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I really enjoyed hearing the story, but I've enjoyed the energy and I've enjoyed hearing about the cool stuff. And I can totally see the future. And I think anyone, even people who haven't been parents, can really see the future of this. I mean, it really is endless, and it's going to be something that people will use almost daily. And that's probably the most exciting thing, right? If you can produce something that someone's using daily to help them, then that's just an awesome impact.
Yeah, if we can pull it off.
that's a big impact.
If we can pull it off, I think, big impact result.
I think you're going to pull it off.
Yeah, me too. I do.
Well, thank you for coming on the show, and I wish you the best of luck. And when you have launched the new cool area, we'll get you back on to talk about it.
The cool bits. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Mel.